met when I was at FIRA.
Yes, we did, Chuck. That's correct. And thank you very much for introducing me to Aaron. And that it's great that I'm able to join today. I'm looking forward to the meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy that you can make it out here. So for those of you who don't know, Natalie Hoptrum, she's from Wageningen. Did I say that correct? University.
Very well.
And she'll be our presenter today. And then also on the call, we have Paul Ramos,
Hello,
who's
everybody.
also the rep, I do believe, for North America for the university.
That's correct, yes.
You want to give a quick introduction to yourself, Paul? And
Of course, thank you, Aaron. Well, hello, everybody. Very nice to be able to join in your meeting today. My name is Paul Ramos and work at Wageningen University in Research, and I'm the what we call liaison officer for the USA and Canada. So what I try to do is keep the institutional connections going with our partners, new or old, in Canada and the US.
fantastic. And Natalie, would you like to introduce yourself? And you can go into your presentation if you'd like from there.
Sure. Yes. Thank you, Aaron. Well, I'm Natalie Hotram. I work at Wageningen University in Research as a project manager in the Agro Systems Research Group and Vision and Robotics team. And I'll tell you a little bit about that in my presentation. I'm a colleague of Paul. And well, I grew up in Canada, so you might hear that by my accent. And I studied at the University of Guelph, yeah, a while ago. I won't say how long ago. Yeah. So now, Aaron, I understood that I had about 20 minutes for the presentation, maybe 25.
Yep, depending on what your needs are, and then we generally open up to a bit of questions, so you might get a couple from the group here as well after that.
Yeah, that's great. And if anybody has any questions in the meantime, just feel free to put up your hands and we'll try to get them as we go. Um, Let me see if I can share. I'm not very familiar with Zoom. Maybe you could give me a tip there.
Just down at the
Share
bottom,
screen.
it should be up share.
Yeah. So share screen 2, right? Okay, that should be my presentation. So you all see my home slide now. Great. Okay, so what I'd like to talk to you a little about today is some of the initiatives that we have going on at Wageningen University of Research in the area of vision and robotics, introduce the vision and robotics team a bit, and then talk specifically about one of the big programs that I'm involved on, which is the Next Gen High Tech Agri-Food. And so, yeah, Wageningen at a glance, Wageningen University and Research. We're located in the Netherlands, but we do projects all over the world. We have about 6,700 employees. Yeah, here you can see that, 50-50 male, female, but also something interesting about Wageningen is we are both a research institute and a university. And you can see that we have about equal number of employees on the research side and on the university side. And the university, that's dedicated to educational activities like bachelor's, master's, PhD programs. And then our research institutes are dedicated to applied research. And that's where I work. I work in the Research Institute, one of them. Actually, this little green building here, that's our plant research is centered there. So that's where I'm sitting, but not calling from today because I'm working from the home office. And Wageningen, in the agricultural world, has quite a track record. So zooming in on that, we have a number of departments. We have the university, we have the research institute, and then we have a vision and robotics team, which actually works across all of the institutes. Our program manager is Eric Peckeriet. He is responsible for developing and promoting our strategy on vision and robotics. And we work in greenhouse technology, field technology, and also post-harvest production, but also marine. So we've got quite a scope there. And we really try to bring together these teams. The theme that binds us all is our interest and specialties in computer vision, robotics, artificial intelligence, spectral imaging. We have about 45 members of our team. And this way, because we have this common ground of vision and robotics, we can interact with one another on that level and then bring it back to our own areas of specialty. So whether it be field robotics, post-harvest, fisheries, etc. And then we're literally powered by Wageningen University and Research. So not only are we literally spread over all of the groups, here you can see we've got, the different groups that we're interested in. So agri-food and technology, animal sciences, environmental science, plant science, social science, but we're also spread all over the campus, which really means that, we come together at certain moments, but we also then go back to our groups and bring our knowledge and share our knowledge across across the university and research. I'd like to just tell a little bit about two of our experts in the team. We have 45. I can't introduce all of them to you, but I'd like to just introduce two names that you might see coming by if we do have opportunity to collaborate with one another. My colleague Art Neuenhausen, he's one of our senior researchers in precision agriculture, machine vision, and robotics. I work actually in the same department as him, and here you can see he's out there, working on some of his favorite outdoor robots. And then another colleague of mine is Jochen Hemming, and he's involved in orchards research. He does quite a lot of work in apple harvesting robots, trimming, also working in the greenhouses themselves, specializing in computer visions. And some of the projects that I'm going to be telling you about today, that's where Art and Joachim are heavily involved in their role as experts. And then my role is more coordinating because I'm a project manager. All right. So we really try to stimulate innovation because we are in applied research. We do a lot of incubator projects. So we've got an accelerator program where we help startups and scale ups with coaching, funding, and housing. We have colleagues on the campus that are very specifically specialized in this. That's our Start Life program. We can that way bring companies, developing companies in contact with a private investor network, like the business angels, that kind of a thing. A lot of public and private partnerships. So this is a particular scheme, but it might be there in Canada as well, where the government contributes financing and then private companies contribute financing and then research institutes can do the work. And it's a way of bringing, the technology and the knowledge faster to market. That's the idea there. We also have testing and validation facilities. There's an EU-sponsored project, actually literally called Agri-Food Testing and Experimentation Facilities for companies and building robots or AI or data digitalization, really to kind of boost that in the EU and in the Netherlands. So you can come to our facilities and get some support for those kind of activities, and also ecosystem development, because we learn so much about robots. We can do so many things, but at the end of the day, it won't have any impact if they don't get adopted, if people don't want to use them, or if they can't, they don't become marketable products. And here you see a bunch of projects that we've been working on. A lot of EU projects like Smart Agri Hubs. We're involved in the EU Robotics Network. AgRobofood is one that just recently wrapped up. If some of you were at the FIRA in France in February, you might have seen their pitches that they gave. And then Next Gen High Tech. And that's a growth fund, a national growth fund sponsored project. And actually the rest of my presentation, I want to talk a little bit about the projects that are going on within the Next Gen High Tech program. If there's any questions so far, maybe then now would be a good time just to say if there's any questions about the vision and robotics team or Wageningen research before we move on.
Natalie, I just wanted to add one thing to you mentioned the public-private partnerships. In my experience, it's a bit the way it's stimulated by our government, this kind of partnerships in a way similar to what Canada has done and does with innovation superclusters. Maybe that for to have a better understanding for you folks.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for your addition. Well, if there's no other questions, I see, or maybe there's something happening in the chat. I'm not sure.
Nope, that was just Paul's message.
Okay, great. Good. Yeah, because sometimes when you're presenting, it's hard to keep your eye on all these things. All right, so then I want to tell you a little bit about Next Gen High Tech. So this is a really quite a large program that just it's going to run until 2030. It just got started off the ground last year in 2023. So it's a 7-year program, which is pretty long for a research sponsored project, government research sponsored project. the government of the Netherlands really wants to stimulate a new generation of high-tech equipment for the future. And it's a big, yeah, you can see yeah, like 450 million euro growth fund. And there's over, yeah, and then this is what the government puts in, and then there's 970 million total because it's also funded by the companies. There's over 60 projects and over 340 partners. So it's pretty huge. There's 6 sectors where we're involved, and one of them is hands-free agri-food. And so that's what I'm going to tell you more about today is really the hands-free agri-food initiative. So within hands-free agri-food, we have 3 sectors where we're working. The first is open fields, dairy, and orchards. So everything that sort of kind of happens outdoors in agriculture. Then we have horticulture in greenhouses, and then we have food hands-free food processing. And there's 17 projects altogether. And then there's an 18th project, which conveniently is called number 19, which is about the ecosystem. But that was what I was talking about earlier. So getting these robots developed is one aspect, that's the technological aspect, but making sure that the market is ready to receive them and the users, are really developing the things that the end users want. That's another aspect. And that's what we try to take care of in the ecosystem project, working together with all the 17 projects. And that's actually where I'm involved in this area. I'm very much involved in the ecosystem project, bringing all these players together. And my colleagues like Arj and Jochen, they're more involved as experts on the outdoor robot projects. So, what do we want to do in NextGen? I think I already mentioned this part, but hands-free agri-food, it's really about creating fast and accurate autonomous robots that can contribute to a sustainable hands-free agri-food chain. Oh, I wasn't aware that this had animation. Sorry about that. So we're addressing a number of societal changes like shortages of labor, um, I'm going to go back. Feeding a growing world population that we need to feed in a sustainable way. Water shortages that might be coming up on the market. Pressures on biodiversity and land use, and really wanting to have something that we can meet these societal challenges to have enough food for our growing population when we have less people who want to do the work, who are available to do the work, and lots of pressures on the planet. So how are we going to do that? Well, one thing we think is robotics could play a role there, and we've got together with these group of stakeholders and partners to work on this challenge. So one of the first projects we have there, and how can I pause this? Because that's a bit, sorry. I don't know how to get rid of them all. So maybe I'm just going to show the slides like this. I hope that's not too disturbing for everybody. It's better than having everything flash around all the time. So I spent a lot of time translating the slides. Next time, I'll also spend time removing animations. The first project in the open fields is full autonomy enabling systems. We really want to improve autonomy in and around the farm. So that's all about integrating robots that might be working outdoors in an open field or on the yard or in the stable, that they really can collaborate with one another, work within a farm business system, even if they're from different brands and manufacturers. The robots need to be able to respect each other's spaces, respect the people and the animals around them, perform their tasks safely, robustly, without supervision, because otherwise you don't really achieve your goal if they can't really do their work without being supervised, and really also integrate them into the system that they can also, care for the soil and the animals and do their job in a reliable way. And working on that project, we have a group, a consortium of all different equipment manufacturers. And one of the challenges that they're really addressing, despite in addition to the technological challenges of developing their autonomous systems, is also getting them all to work together smoothly. And so what they really want to do, produce more with fewer resources. They want to prove that that's possible with no or less damage to soil, certainly no damage to animals, really reducing human interaction for the repetitive tasks, freeing up the humans to do the more complicated thinking, and increase profitability for farmers. And how they're going to do that, like I said, working to improve the interaction between the robots, ensure safety and navigation in and on and around the farms. Sometimes things are tricky when you lose signals, when you go into buildings, how do you deal with that? They want to also promote lightweight vehicles that will be, less damaging to the soil and really achieve an unattended robotic farm. And this is their very futuristic picture or cartoon, of how that farm might look like. So that's kind of their visionary aspect. A second project we're working on is plasma technology for sustainable food production. We have a number of players involved there, and the whole idea behind plasma technology is that you can take nitrogen and oxygen from the air and add electricity, and then you can get a number of type of chemical reactions going on. One of them is that you can make nitrogen from the air available as a nutrient in the form of nitrate, or you can use it to treat manure and reduce ammonia and methane emissions and replace, man-made fertilizers, air treatment to reduce stable odors, reduce ammonia emissions, and also improve plant health because some of these free radicals that are formed can actually act as reduce the need for pesticides because they can protect the plants. It can be used as plant protection products. There's all kinds of benefits that can be had, and the different companies involved, they're all working on different aspects of these challenges. So it makes it, a way to work pretty competitively in a consortium on the topic of plasma technology. The third project we're working on here, it's e-tractor. They want to make an autonomous and electrically powered platform that can be used in open cultivation, and quite a lot of people there. Racing, you might know, they're quite, I think they're worldwide. The idea is they're working on a platform. They want to make it autonomous. They also want it to be electric, uh, connected to smart implements, and that the farmer or the person end user of this machine can really have a lot of freedom to configure their ideal machine, and that it's really tested by leading growers. So they want to get that end user experience right up front, and really use that to drive the innovation and development of their machine. A similar but different concept, that's the pixel farming robotics. They really want to make AgRobotics for global agri-tech internet. Oh, sorry, network for autonomous farmers for hands-free food production. And this is also, in our ecosystem project, we also have test and validation facilities where, these use cases can come and test, and then we can also do some dissemination activities. So on the one hand, all of the companies you're seeing here and all the consortia you're seeing here, they're doing their own research, and then a part of that is also comes in the ecosystem so that we can already get it out there in the market and start talking about it, make some noise about it, get some feedback, and start to understand what the users are really looking for. And this project, they're also really involved in getting out there, talking to growers. So they've got 4 different growers, 4 different crops, 4 different types of industrial research. They're really ambitious in the area of artificial intelligence, IP security. They want things to be easy, so code-free training and testing by growers. It should be just very intuitive, and they're working on 4 crops in the first place. So celeriac, and then of course, being the Netherlands, flower bulbs, leeks, and tulips are really popular. Then we have an apple picking robot. This is led by Munkhoff, but with other partners as well. Ver is involved on this. You might have seen this picture in my intro slide of my colleague Jochen Hemming. He's been working on the topic of apple picking in orchards already for, I think, about maybe 10 years. And every year they get a bit closer to their final goal. And you can see here, how that robot arm is working and how it's developing on carefully handling these apples so that they wind up undamaged and harvested and maintaining their good quality. They want to really automatically pick the apples also, and then have more implements available on this platform. So for example, pruning, so that you have a machine that you can use on the farm and the orchard year round, not just for a few weeks every year. And the idea is really to be able to exchange human labor, because that's really an issue, being able to find enough people to harvest these fruits every year. So really reduce the human labor, but work together. So it's more like a cobot kind of a situation. So here you see 4 people in one robot, but they want to really get down to one robot and one person, and stepwising, really challenges they're working on right now is getting the picking speed up and adding the other implements, and then of course connecting to a collective digital infrastructure. We also have a project on vegetable harvesting. We're looking here at broccoli and peas. And I think I'll just show, really also again going for increasing the autonomy here, and really addressing some of those challenges that we're coming across in the vegetables areas, which are reducing losses in the harvesting, smart control of the harvesters, and connecting to this collective digital infrastructure, because this data is becoming very huge. It's going to be a very important part of, the success, and I guess, yeah, in a way, the future of this kind of new way of working. And so, we've spent a lot of time maybe over the last decades or maybe even last century on automation. We're going to be looking more and more towards autonomy, and having good quality data is going to be part of that. Another project really working on data side of things is hands-free orchards. So we saw the harvesting robot or the pruning robot, and this project is really complementary to that because they also want to have this autonomous management of the orchards so that you can really, combine all the information from your sensors, that you can analyze that, you can use that information as input into models for growth or pruning or whatever needs to happen, can give some real advice to the maybe the driver. You could still have, it doesn't have to be fully autonomous, but then it has to be able to execute these tasks. And then on the topic of data, because you've heard me mention it a couple of times, so you can see how these projects and in consortia are all interacting with one another. We have the Dutch Data Line project. I guess it's called Holland Data Line. And this is really about also empowering the farmers, making a data hub and being really clear about when is it proprietary data and how do you, maintain access to your data, even if you change equipment, change brands, change servers, change providers, all those kinds of things, your data should still be portable. There's legislation coming out about that, and we need to be very aware of it. And it's really about being able to own the data and control the data and all these aspects of storing, sharing, using. And there's a number of pilots that are going to be running over the next, I guess, almost 7 years. This one's in Dutch, sorry about that. And then a final one, kind of fun one, I guess, because we're looking at this project here. They're looking at the possibility of using towers for monitoring crops. They have multi and hyperspectral cameras, and their ultimate ambition is to really have time-lapse videos for better agronomic measurements or managements. So really knowing about the soil conditions, being able to constantly monitor that, so not having to wait for the satellite to come by and then, that's a cloudy day and then you miss data, but actually to be able to have a continuous monitoring and give really good advice about things like irrigation or fertilization or other types of activities that can happen. And well, their test pilot case is to do this on football fields because this grass is very well defined. So it's a good test case for the system. And then their ultimate goal is to translate that to precision agriculture. But I say it's a bit of a fun one, especially if you're a football fan. And then we have the final project, which is the ecosystem, and kind of like the one to bind them all. We really want to make sure we want to boost the adoption of robotics and digitalization in the agri-food sector and really accelerate the time to market for the innovations that are developed within the Next Gen project. I talked to you about 9 of them. I think it was quite a lot of information. There's another 8 projects. Those are the projects that are in horticulture and food processing. And if you want to have any information about those, feel free to reach out and get in touch about this or any of the other projects. And maybe just to wrap it up, I would say go for agro and go for tech. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. And I'd like to also take this time to acknowledge my colleagues, Eric Peckreed, our project manager, but also our senior researchers, Art and Jochen, who kind of talked me through these slides and gave me the background that I needed to hopefully give you guys a good idea about what's going on today. And thank you, Aaron, also for this invite. And if you want to know more about our vision and robotics team, you can check out our website at visionrobotics.eu. So,
Thank
any
you for that
questions?
presentation.
I have a question here, Aaron.
Yep, go ahead,
Sure.
Joe.
Great presentation, Natalie. Thank you for sharing. This one's more about your last slide, the ecosystem development. Um, what have been your biggest challenges, and how have you overcome them to stimulate that ecosystem?
That's a great question. Thanks for that. Yeah, our ecosystem's pretty much in, the starting phase. We've been there. We started the project a year ago, so we've been running for a year. I would say our biggest challenge right now is, to really make sure that we've got all of our stakeholders on board. So we've got good representation by the companies, right? We've got 64 companies. We've got 4 or 5 research institutes. We've got people from education, from, at all levels of post-secondary education. But I think, one of our blind spots, one of our white spots, I guess you might call, is getting really those growers involved and excited about this project and it to interact with the equipment and the machines. And we've been talking about, what would be a good way to go about that. And a lot of our a lot of the companies involved, they have their own networks of growers. And we're, starting up discussions about how we can tap into that resource and that network and try to get things accelerated that way. Yeah.
Just to follow up on that, so if you're looking at your job for the next, I don't know, 2 years, what do you need? So you've talked about relationships with growers and growers implementing. Is there anything else you need?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I mean,
Sorry.
lots. I think we need lots.
Mhm.
So we have a good basis. We have some funding. We have our test and validation locations. I didn't really go into that in depth, but we have one of the research farms of the university where it's more like animal, like livestock research farm, experimental farm. We've got an orchards experimental farm. We have 2 field crops experimental farms where they also do some vegetable growing. So in terms of experimental farm facilities, we're quite well equipped. And then we've got, the companies that have their own ambitions and their own projects that they're working on. And we have all kinds of people from the colleges and the universities with all kinds of enthusiastic students that want to, get in there and test it and try it all out. And then we're figuring out a way to tap into this network of growers. But I think what we really need is we need to find that glue that's going to, bring all these people together and really get them interacting. Because then I think things will really start to happen. And so, yeah, trying to get a handle on that glue.
Okay,
Yeah.
glue. We'll order some glue.
Yeah, we'll order some glue. Yeah.
I see Dan has a question. Dan Oliver.
Hi, Natalie. Thanks for the presentation. And I got to give credit to you. The first time I've seen a picture of a pea harvester in any presentation. So the forgotten crop is no longer forgotten. Can you maybe take a minute? I don't know how much time we have, Aaron, but maybe a minute and just explain a little bit more about what you're doing with Pluger, because that's, I think, kind of a different one that not very many people are doing.
Oh, yeah. Well, I could tell the part that I'm allowed to tell because all, like I was saying, all the projects, they have their own project, and then that's kind of, behind closed doors. And then in the ecosystem, that's where we do the dissemination activities. And so Oxbow Pluger are involved in this project on the autonomous vegetable harvesting, and we're working on it together with an American company that's also opened a branch in the Netherlands, automated harvesting solutions, and the one is working on broccolis. The other is working on peas, and the idea there is actually to go to really get towards an autonomous harvesting system. I don't know what
So
specifically
I
your
guess,
question is.
yeah, so I guess maybe, and I'm sorry, I came in a little late to your presentation. Maybe reiterate where your organization fits in the picture and bringing everybody together. So where
Yeah.
would I want to follow up with you more after this call?
Sure. Well, we're also involved in that project. So my colleague Art Newhouse, I introduced him at the beginning. He's one of the senior researchers involved in this project. So I would say if you're interested in this topic, if you're interested in the topic of pea harvesting, reach out to me and I can get you in touch with Art, and then you could take it from there. maybe you could tell me a little bit about yourself, Dan. What's your background and what's your interest?
So I represent one of the larger food processing companies in North America. So I'm based out of Canada. So we do a little bit of our own harvesting, but basically we're covering 45 to 50,000 acres of processing peas across Canada and the US today, and always looking to expand and grow that. But one of the recent challenges in the last 15 years is finding reliable heartbeats to sit in a seat.
Yeah.
So that's our reality today, and the heartbeats that we can put in a seat sometimes have barely driven a lawnmower in their past. So all they see is the 13 feet of peas in front of them, and I wouldn't call them overly skilled. And
Right.
indirectly, that's having a massive economic impact on many of the stakeholders that are involved. So if we can automate that process. I mean, a Pluger harvester is one that's censored to the nines. To me, it's one that just makes complete sense. Why don't we just let a computer run this thing and let the skilled people walk around them and make sure that they're dialed in and working as efficiently as possible, rather than relying on each individual operator to be doing that job, when the reality is it's a 6-week harvest. You're not going to find a highly skilled person to sit in that seat for 6 weeks. So to me, it makes complete sense to automate, and I think there's a lot of money on the table that we're spilling onto the ground over that 6-week period just because of these challenges. So how we fix them,
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but just wonder if automation is just a great path to head down.
Yeah. Well, thanks for illustrating that problem, because I do understand from my colleagues working, in this area, it is really an intense period when you have to go into harvest, and I think you've really sketched the challenge there very clearly. And I'd be glad, if there's people from this group who want to pick this up, or you want to pick it up, I can
And
get you in touch.
I
Yeah.
mentioned it to Chuck a couple years ago. He had a very good demonstration day that Grant and Chuck put on, and the group from Raven was there, and they were, demonstrating the autonomous tractor, the aftermarket solution from Raven. Maybe it's changed now that you can make any tractor an autonomous tractor. And I looked at him and said, well, why don't we make the harvester the autonomous one? Because in our world, it's kind of opposite. In the grain world, they look at the grain cart operator as being the skillless job. I don't want to say that, but the menial task. It's kind of the
The
other way
repetitive
around
task.
it's kind of the other way around in our business.
Yeah.
I'd rather make
Yeah.
the harvester autonomous and put the full brained person in the buggy to control the larger fleet. And it kind of caught them off guard. And it's just one of those things where the industry's heading in one direction, but in the processing vegetable world, almost need to be heading in the opposite direction to have meaningful impact. So anyways, I'll leave it at that, and we can follow up after. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
David Hobson, you have your hand up.
Hi there, Natalie. Just absolutely excellent presentation. I'm from the University of Guelph. You are our mentor, leader. We want to follow your lead. Absolutely. I commend you on your long-term vision, your ability to bring partners together. And one thing that I want to point out is that you have academics and non-academic researchers who are focused on the applied research, which we need here in Canada, because the academic research has different incentives. And the fact that you have very applied researchers, that their goal is to help industry, is just fantastic. Like, I love your vision. Great job. My big question for you is, how do we get all the players to work together and share the outputs? Because we sometimes have trouble here. We want to get all the partners involved, but if there's not enough of a payoff, what do I get out of it? I have to share this with all the other companies or all the other stakeholders. They start to worry about that. In other words, what's in it for me in the end? And you have brought together 450 million euros and 64 companies. It's fantastic. How are you getting everybody to share at the end of the project?
Great question. Yeah. Well, I'm not the lawyer, right? We have a team that works on the consortium agreement, and I think what is helpful is we have a kind of infrastructure that a lot of people are familiar with from collaborating in EU projects. And when we set out to decide, how are we going to work out terms and conditions for this, we said, let's, we got, why reinvent the wheel? Everybody's familiar with this model. Let's use that model. So that really sped things up because it was, felt safe and familiar to everybody. You didn't have to. So, and then we tweaked it, and I think one of the things that really makes this project work is the fact that we do have the 17 individual consortia where they can work on their innovations. They have that, they're all working on different things. So they've already, looked at what's unique, what are we doing, what are you doing? So they kind of all have their own areas carved out. And then separate to all of that, we have the ecosystem project. And the ecosystem project is where people say, okay, this is where we're going to collaborate on the really pre-competitive topics, the things that we feel safe about sharing with one another. So we've created an environment where you can kind of have the best of both worlds. You can do your own thing in your own consortium, and then you can do something collective in the ecosystem project. And that, I think that's a nice model. It seems to work.
Fantastic. And then I do believe we have, sorry, I'm forgetting is it Bob? I see you had your hand
Yeah,
up.
sorry about that.
No worries.
Can't figure out how to get my name on there yet. Anyways, Natalie, thank you very much. We're a manufacturer of harvesting equipment in Canada for indoor farming. Are you getting into indoor farming as far as vertical growing and greenhouse and all that as well, or mainly outdoors?
Oh, yeah, great question. Yeah, absolutely. Well, in this particular project, we do have 4 projects involved down in greenhouse technology. So for sure, even within this one, and then we have lots of other projects. I mean, I didn't have a lot of time. I had to make a choice, so I decided to talk about the next gen high tech. But we have a whole department on greenhouse technology, and they are looking at all kinds of things like vertical farming and indoor farming, horticulture, and well, I don't know, Paul, maybe you could help me out here a little bit because I think there's been some visits even to Canada, to different areas that are working on these topics.
That's correct, Natalie. The colleagues of the Greenhouse Horticulture Department are at this moment talking a lot with partners in British Columbia through a center that was set up by the BC government called the BC Center for AgTech Innovation. And in that process, we also found out that, of course, we knew that already, that in Ontario, there's a lot to do also about horticulture. So, well, let's say at this moment, their focus is on BC, but keeping a keen eye on Ontario as well to expand the collaborations there. In June, there's in Amsterdam, there will be the Green Tech Fair, the Horti Fair, the global fair for horticulture, where not only some companies from BC, but also from other parts in Canada will be joining a delegation that is led by the NRC, an STI delegation. I could send you the information to our to the Canadian Embassy in The Hague about whether it's interesting to join that and take up things there as well.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
We actually had one of the universities from Holland come through our facility about 3 or 4 years ago. They were doing a trip through Canada and they stopped at our place, it was pretty exciting for us. So.
May I ask which facilities those are?
We're Hamel Agricultural Processing Solutions in Niagara Falls, Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
I just forget the name of the university at the moment, but there's probably 20 students that came along on that trip.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
it was very, very cool. Thank you.
And I see Chuck has his hand up as well.
Yeah, I think I was going to make a kind of a joint comment for Dan and for Natalie. So one of the technologies that I saw this week in Pittsburgh was a modification of the um, like leader follower type robotic systems. And Dan, what it was is they have developed a system of robotics where they can take the lead robot is operated by the human, and then the other robots follow what that machine is doing without any input from the human operator of any kind. Like they don't have to tell it where to drive, what direction, what roads to take, how fast, anything. Just the basic diagram is or the basic operation is all that's required. And Natalie, I'm just curious if any of the projects that your group is working on is related to that. And if you don't know, that's okay.
Yeah, I know. I have a PhD. They always told me if you don't know, just say so. Don't invent something. uh, that's a great question. I think one project that I am aware of that comes very close to this is something that we're working on in the post-harvest group, where it's really learning by demonstration. So then you've got a human operator, moving, doing whatever activity you want it to be, like picking up the oranges and putting it in a crate. And then instead of trying to, really program the robot, it's just learning by watching the human doing it. And then it's figuring out what's going on here. And I think they're finding that that's really an interesting and has a lot of potential for extremely complex things. I don't know. I'm a human. You're a human. We're all humans. There's some things that you could do, but if you have to slow down and explain to somebody what you're doing, it's like you can't do it anymore. And those are like great applications where this learning by demonstration or this following of the leader thing that you're talking about is really great, like extremely complex things. And then, somehow this computer with its sensors has got to just figure out by watching you what you're doing and then start to do its own thing. And I don't know of exact example like that you were talking about, but it sounds pretty cool. I'd be interested to hear more about it. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
No, we only have 15 minutes left in the meeting, but if there's any burning questions, please let me know now. If not, we'll move on to the next section. Any other questions for Natalie or Paul? No? Okay, fantastic. Natalie, I really appreciate that presentation. It's quite the array of projects you guys are working on, and I think it's great connection for the working group as well. Oh, Kristen, just giving claps. I thought that was a hand up for a second.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, so Erin, what did you have in mind? Did you want us to stay on, or would you like us to check out now?
You're more than
Or
welcome to stay on. So from here, generally, we just kind of go through our agenda, go over events that are happening. If anyone's been to those recent events, we have them give updates. Sometimes we go through fundings. There hasn't been any new updates on any funding programs that are coming through. And then we give updates on our projects that we're currently doing.
And I think from this point on, like we would love to have, if you at any point in the future, if you would like to attend our meetings and join our group, and really what we're about is collaboration and kind of shrinking the space down so that we all know what's going on, and that's how we advance the industry. I think we all have the same end goal in mind, and none of us know really how to get there. So the more that we share what's going on in the world, that's you're more than welcome. So thank you.
Glue to the
Thanks.
ecosystem.
Yeah, thanks very
Chuck's
much. In
about
that case,
glue.
yeah, thank you. Well, then, if it's all right with everyone, I would like to stay on for the next 15 minutes and hear about, get to know you guys a bit better and what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Thanks. I'll mute my mic now though.
So just going into conferences and everything along those lines, Chuck, did you want to give an update on that Pittsburgh or elaborate any more on that?
Yeah, I can. What I'll do here is I won't go into too much information. I've got so actually just a second here. I should have been more prepared. Let me, wait, will this let me share my screen?
Yes, it should.
Okay. Can you guys see that okay?
Yep.
Okay. I have some guests in my office actually as well. If you guys want to introduce yourselves, lean into the microphone.
Hi, I'm Maurice Dagenet at Earth Alive Clean Technology. And one of my colleague here. Francois Sarrazin with Earth Alive as well. We're a biotech out of Montreal, and we're using microorganisms to make anything with roots grow bigger, faster, greener, and produce bigger, better fruits.
Right. And well, that's good. Excellent. Thanks, guys. And some of this stuff relates. So this week I went down to the robotics factory and did a tour of the Pittsburgh Robotics Network and Carnegie Mellon University. And I'll just go through this really quickly. One of the things I'm going to say is that they're getting lots of support from their state government. They just received 63 million in new funding. Agriculture really is where it's at. You know, doesn't matter where you are. But I will say, when I asked the question, who's paying for all this, the U.S. military is paying for most of it. But it's an interesting approach. Some of the speakers that we had, the CTO of Kubota was there. You know, they kind of talked about what their main interests are in the technology space and why they're doing this. Very much an environmental sustainability take is what they're after. The CEO of Mahindra was there. Again, the largest tractor manufacturer globally in terms of the units sold. One of his comment that I thought was interesting was just the breakdown of the size of farmers. And so this was from one of his slides. And they talk about the average farm size based on geography. And really what he talked about was that 70% of farmers are under 25 acres still at this time. And so when we're thinking about automation, technology, and robotics, it's not all about just the equipment. It's also about the production systems, how crops are grown, precision, all these things fit together, which I thought was interesting. And his other quote was that at his company, especially in India, we don't sell technology. He said when a farmer in a developing country gets a tractor, their world changes. You know, the way that he described it was that their kids can go to school, their family members can stop spending all the time in the field. He said it's a life, getting a piece of technology, something that we take for granted in North America, is a life-changing experience. And sometimes we forget that. So I thought that was very impactful. We had some speakers. The CEO of Burrow was there. I had a chat with him, and Walt McClock from Western Growers, who we've heard about before, and one of the founding members of Thrive. We had messages from the USDA and the secretary, as well as from other departments. Presentations on all of the robotics work that's happening. And what was interesting about all the speakers is almost every single one of them had at least one successful technology company spun out of that cluster, which I think that was what was interesting for myself, which is really what we're talking about doing as well. You know, there's lots of different pieces of tech. I'm not sure how well this video is going to show up, but this little robotic snake, they let that wrap around my leg, and it'll actually climb up a pole. It's used for search and rescue, cleaning pipes, these kinds of things. So they got all kinds of stuff in this lab that they're working on. This image shows the different iterations of robotic hands. And really, when we're talking about, you know, this technology is, they're kind of trying to group all the different pieces of tech, whether it's medical, agriculture, manufacturing together. And really what they're trying to say is that the human hand is a pretty good tool. And what they're trying to do is mimic. So all of these hands have different forms of tendons and motors and stuff like that to give all of the motion. And they went through the iteration, and how quickly they can actually make different versions and out of different materials. Again, a lot of history. This is George Cantor talking about the evolution of Bloomfield Robotics and how long it took to kind of turn into a product. So we got to see, kind of the finished state of where a company was, but we also got to see a startup. So this is a startup company that's trying to build if you notice, that's a Warthog from ClearPath, and they're building an autonomous tree planting robot. And what was interesting about this approach, when I was talking with them, they're as well connected as these guys are. They weren't aware that robotic planters already exist. So they're here trying to build a robotic transplanter, but they didn't actually know that in agriculture, robotic transplanters already exist, and they're quite shocked at that. So this is why we want to share. This is why we share what's going on around. But that was interesting. I got to see one of these robotic dogs walking around, and anyways, when the lady here, her exact comment, she had a smile on her face, but she said that was the most terrifying thing she's ever seen. And but some of these technologies they don't have a use for. They have built them, but they don't really know what they're going to do with them. But that's what research is for. We also saw some presentations from some other successful spin-offs. One of them was 4 Growers, which have built the fastest automated harvester for cherry tomatoes. Apparently, according to the guy, he spent all of his time in Leamington the last little while. So even though he's from Pittsburgh, he's been in Leamington almost every day. He has sold multiple systems now to Nature Fresh. This robot can harvest cucumbers as well, and it's twice as fast as a human in terms of harvesting speed. And that's their claim. Main Street Autonomy. What this company does is software for robots that can navigate the environment without any GPS. So when these robots go out into the environment, they determine their own boundaries without any kind of interaction, which is pretty interesting. The robot is a robot for corn, basically to apply nitrogen and cover crops. They now have a commercial deployment in Illinois. They've got 1 million acres apparently up for grabs. They're obviously not going to do 1 million acres this year, but that's the potential for them. And these are little diesel powered robots that will go up and down corn rows. They're 6 feet long, 20 feet wide, or 20 inches wide. And then the other interesting one was a company called Efficient, which they measure the amount of light that plants are actually using that are coming from the sun, and they can dynamically control the lighting in a greenhouse, and they're promising 50% energy savings from greenhouses by dynamically controlling the amount of lighting being applied. So there's lots of cool stuff happening. One of the things that I think that they're doing very well is they're grouping all of the disciplines together. And I think this probably isn't a new idea, but what they're trying to avoid siloing as much as possible, because there is, if you want to engage all the players, you kind of have to let everybody know what's going on, because there's definite crossover between the medical field, between the automotive field, between the agriculture field, between the military. Like all these things kind of fit together, and which is why a bunch of the guys who had these spin-off companies. They didn't actually start in agriculture. The technology that they had and their background was not in ag originally, but the market turned out to be in agriculture, which I thought was interesting. So that was kind of the highlight of what I had, and that was my event. So
Fantastic. I see Ian has a question.
So, Chuck, a conversation that you and I have had in the past is about the logistics of the new fitting in with the current and stuff like that, and the new being able to support itself in the field instead of having lots of people there to change batteries and fill and stuff. As you go to these events more recently, and then for Wageningen University as well, like, are we looking at these companies more understanding that, you know, Joe and Jane Farmer are not going to drop here millions of dollars in investment in a current technology on the farm to replace it with this, that we've got this integration that needs to happen?
So all those 4 companies that I showed at the end, all 4 of them will integrate directly into growers' existing operations with no structural changes. And that's one of the reasons it makes them easier to adopt. They fit into what the growers are already doing. And I think that was identified as a change, or as one of the success factors that they're working on, is saying, how do we, and one of the things that Kubota and Mahindra talked about as well was, how do we really identify, and what the guy from Mahindra did is he actually made us think in the terms of the farmer. What does the farmer actually see? What does the farmer do, and what do they expect? Not what is the salesperson, the engineer, the technician think and expect. You know, how's the farmer going to work with this? And I thought that was an interesting exercise.
Well, we've come to our time now. Thank you for sharing that. Also, quick little update. Hopefully have the annual report out to everyone. I'll send an email when that is available. Oh, Kristen, yeah. Oh, keep going. I hope to have that finished. The main report's finished. We're just waiting on the French translation to be finally confirmed, and then it'll be available to everyone. So really excited to have that out as well. Kristen?
Oh, I just found out that it's somebody's birthday today, so I wanted to say happy birthday to Chuck. Welcome to the 50 Club. And we hope you have a great day anyway, so.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, Kristen. I don't need to be embarrassed at all.
I'm just a little bit older than you. Months.
Fantastic. Well, have a great Friday as well. And we'll see you again next week.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.